the COVID-19 pandemic. To all of you and your families and friends, be well, be safe. We'd much rather meet with you in person this evening to share our updates and be able to hear directly from each of you. But for now, we will continue to keep our community safe, healthy, and as connected as we can during this pandemic. This evening, we have a great panel of presenters to provide updates to you. I want to introduce our city manager, Jason Hawley, to get the presentation started.
Thank you, Leon, and welcome everyone to our first virtual State of the City and hopefully our last one. We very much enjoy these in person more than having to do these online, but this year we wanted to come up with something special to remember how things transpired last year. So thank you all for joining us on this February 23rd, 2021 State of the City presentation. We have 4 wonderful guests lined up for us tonight, starting first with Napa County Health Officer, Dr. Karen Relucio, who's going to be giving us an update on the pandemic. We also have the American Canyon Fire District, new Fire District Chief, Mike Cahill. We have our 5th District Supervisor, Ms. Belia Ramos. And lastly, we have our Chamber of Commerce CEO, Valerie Zizak Moraes. And they will all be giving an update on their respective jurisdictions. And so without any further ado, I want to go ahead and turn this presentation over to Dr. Karen Relucio, who's going to be giving an update on the pandemic. And we're so pleased to have you this evening, Dr. Relucio. Thank you for making time for us. I know you're especially busy these days, and you've been doing an amazing effort this past year. So thank you for all that you've been doing and all the work you've been championing for American Canyon and Napa County. We appreciate you being here, and we look forward to hearing the latest information. So thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. So, hi, good evening. This is Dr. Karen Relucio. I'm the Public Health Officer and Public Health Director in Napa County. And I think we have a slideshow, so I'll give an update. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so I just wanted to talk about what's going on with our case rates. So overall, our case rates in the entire county are going down. As you know, we've had a large surge that was present in the months of December and January. And that is reflected in when we look at the case rates in the American Canyon. So American Canyon had peaked at almost 800 cases per 100,000 population. And this is at a time where the county was really looking at very high case rates with, we had like 2,500 cases in the month of December, just to put that in a context. And as you can see, the cases have gone down and have been less than 100 just more recently. Next slide. So I do want to talk about the blueprint for a safer economy. This is actually what we use case rates, testing positivity, and health equity testing positivity to determine where we are in the blueprint. So there are 4 different tiers, with the purple tier being the most restrictive, and then the red tier being the second most restrictive, followed by the orange tier and the yellow tier. So we have still remained in the purple tier, but this week I can happily say that our metrics are falling into the red tier. Just to put things into context, in December, we were under a regional stay-at-home order because the case rates, hospitalizations were very high, and we also had decreased intensive care unit capacity. So in order to protect the hospital system, the state had moved the Bay Area region into a regional stay-at-home order. We fortunately have been out of that order for a few weeks, and we have remained in purple, but I'm happy to say that we are now having metrics that fall into the red tier. So cases per 100,000, it's 10.6, but we've adjusted it downward because we're testing at double the statewide median. So it adjusts our case rates down to 6.8, which is in the red tier. And then when we look at our 7-day average of testing positivity and the health equity testing positivity, they're both in the orange range. So if we look at what's going on with our epidemiological stability of cases, our case doubling time has increased to over a year. We haven't seen something like this in a long time, so this is really a good direction. And our outbreaks have decreased such that we have gone from 13 facility outbreaks to 6, which is a big drop in outbreaks. And then in terms of our hospitalization, we've had 6 hospitalizations in the previous week, 8. And then we had 1 death in the current week and in the previous week, 2. Next slide. So this is a reminder of our blueprint tiers. The county must meet criteria for the next less restrictive tier for both adjusted case rate and overall test positivity rate. And then we also must meet the health equity criteria to demonstrate the ability to address the most impacted communities within a county. If a county's case rate is declining but has not met threshold for the next less restrictive tier, if the test positivity rate and the lowest HPI quartile test positivity rate are in orange, for example, then we can move in the red. Next slide. So just in summary, it seems like if we have red metrics this week and next week, it is certainly possible that we could move into the red tier on March 10th. And what that would mean is that restaurants can have indoor dining at 25% capacity. And it also just allows gyms to open at 10%. And there's other things, but I think we should wait until we get there before we start talking about that. At this point, I'm going to move on to vaccinations, which has pretty much been the main focus of this response more recently in 2021. So we have so far administered 42,997 doses in Napa County, and this includes people that live in our county and work in our county. Next slide. So I want to talk about just how vaccine is allocated because I think there's a lot of questions. So when we look at vaccine allocations from the federal government, actually the federal's allocations go to several places. So it goes to the state departments of public health. It also goes to the Centers for Disease Control Long-Term Care Pharmacy Partnership through CVS and Walgreens, which is meant to vaccinate nursing homes, long-term care facilities, skilled nursing facilities, and other residential care facilities for the elderly. It also goes to the CDC Retail Pharmacy Partnership. So this goes to CVS and Rite Aid. And also, more recently, the state has added Walgreens into this mix. Additionally, it also goes to FEMA sites that have been opened in Oakland Coliseum and the LA Dodgers Stadium. Next slide. So in looking at how vaccine is allocated from the state, 80%, traditionally 80% of doses went to 61 local health jurisdictions across California, of which Napa County Public Health is one of them. More recently, this has decreased to 70%. And then they also allocate vaccine to multi-county entities, which are healthcare systems such as Adventist Health, Kaiser, Providence St. Joseph, Sutter, Dignity, so those large healthcare systems. And then they also allocate vaccine to the Department of State Hospitals. So we have Napa State Hospital as one of the hospitals, and then the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. So there's been a change in the ratio from 80-20 to now 70-30. So although we are seeing increased doses gradually increase every week from the federal government to California, the ratio has changed as the state is transitioning some of the allocations. Next slide. And as a county, we receive vaccine and then we reallocate it. We either keep it for ourselves for mass vaccination clinics or mobile vaccination clinics, or else we allocate it to other healthcare systems so they can vaccinate their patients. So we have allocated it to our hospitals, St. Helena Hospital and Queen of the Valley, as well as Napa State Hospital, in order for them to vaccinate healthcare workers and then to get to vulnerable patients in phase 1B sectors. We've also allocated to outpatient practices such as Kaiser, OA Health, and some private practices that have had the ability to vaccinate their patients with a focus on 75 plus and 65 plus after taking care of their own staff, which are phase 1A healthcare workers. And then we also allocated vaccine to Safeway Pharmacy to vaccinate our education and childcare sectors. Next slide. So there has been a lot of shifting guidance from California Department of Public Health, and most recently on February 13th, this is the guidance that has come out. So based on available supply, individuals are or will be eligible for COVID-19 vaccines. So in phase 1A, this would include healthcare workers and residents of long-term care facilities or skilled nursing facilities or nursing homes. And this makes up 3.1 million Californians. In phase 1B, this includes 3 main sectors and 65 plus. So food and agriculture, education and childcare, and emergency services make up almost 6 million Californians. And people that are aged 65 years of age or older make up 6.2 million Californians. Of note, about a month ago, this same prioritization guidance for 1B prioritized 75 plus. So it was added on to 65 plus, which then increased the population that we have to vaccinate. Beginning on March 15th, the counties are being, and counties and healthcare systems are being directed to vaccinate individuals aged 16 to 64 years of age who are deemed to be at the very highest risk for morbidity or mortality from COVID-19 based on health conditions. And these are described on the state's website. Next slide. So putting this into context in Napa County, for phase 1A, we have like 12,000 people that are in that category. And when we look at phase 1B tier 1, which are all the sectors that are listed here, there's about 12,000 people. And then for those that are 65 years of age or older, there's over 25,000 people. So we've had to sub-prioritize and hit the 75 plus first at 11,000. And the main reason that we had to do that is because a lot of our deaths and hospitalizations are in people that are age 75 years of age or older. So in summary, we would need 98,000 doses for those 2 phases alone, and we've only received less than half the doses needed so far. So the California Department of Public Health has put forth the 70-30 strategy. So at some point, Napa County Public Health Clinics were really focusing on getting 75 plus, as well as trying to hit some of the sectors in phase 1B, but we were really focusing on 75 plus and then moving to 65 plus. And a lot of us were really concerned because they are the population that are most at risk for hospitalizations and death from COVID-19 disease. But the sectors are also at risk, mainly because they are frontline staff that don't have the opportunity to telework. So if they get infected, they could bring it home to their family members that are 65 plus. So, so just looking at phase 1B tier 1, which is makes up the 30% strategy, 10% should be in education and childcare, and the state is going to allocate vaccine, and this should begin on March 1st. And then the 20% also go to food and agriculture and emergency services. Next slide. So when we look at the number of doses that we've received, actually, you have to have enough vaccine doses to cover everybody, and you have to multiply it by 2 because there are 2 doses. In addition, we have to add another 25,000 people who work in our county because they are part of phase 1A, which is the healthcare sector, or phase 1B sectors, which is education and childcare, food and agriculture, and emergency services worker. And if we look at who has been vaccinated, that makes up about 13% of the doses needed. Next slide. Looking at 65 plus, this represents the largest group that we have to vaccinate. And so the number of doses that are needed to get everyone who's 65 years of age or older that live in Napa County, it's over 51,000 doses. And the number of doses that were administered those that are 65 plus is 31%, or over 16,000 doses. And of note, we do have the capacity to deliver 13,400 doses per week, but we just don't have enough vaccine. Next slide. And this is where we had to sub-prioritize and focus on 75 plus. So you need over 22,000 doses to vaccinate those that are 75 years of age or up. And the number of doses that are administered are about 45% of the doses, which is 10,000 doses. So we're halfway there, and people need their second doses. Next slide. So we are really making a lot of efforts to use the vaccine as fast as possible. In fact, we are doing really quite well in that category. On average, we have a 3-day supply of vaccine on hand because we use it quickly. So just talking about what we're doing for new first dose clinics, we are opening 840 first dose drive-through appointments on Tuesday through Friday of next week, which will target 65 plus. We are prioritizing those that are Spanish speaking because when you look at our epidemiology, the Latinx population is disproportionately impacted by COVID-19, by cases, hospitalizations, and deaths. In addition, OLA Health will begin vaccinating clients that are 65 years of age or older. And then our mobile clinic operations will focus on farm worker centers and senior complexes in Napa and American Canyon. St. Helena Hospital Foundation will vaccinate 65 plus from the county list and farm workers in agriculture this week. In terms of second doses, and the reason why I talk about second doses is because we had gotten to the point where we were not receiving enough second doses to vaccinate everyone within 28 days. So we had to prioritize last week. I'm happy to say that this week we are able to vaccinate everybody that needs a second dose on time and make up for last week where we had to hold off some doses. As you know, there was a winter storm and none of our vaccine that was supposed to arrive last week arrived on time. They arrived in the beginning of this week. So now we have plenty to get through this week. And then we were also able to allocate doses for Safeway so they can finish second doses for educators. Just to let you know, however, that we've only gotten part of the educators because there wasn't enough vaccine to get everyone. And I'm happy to say that next week we will be able to hopefully get the rest of the educators in childcare vaccinated. Next slide. So I want to talk about what options are available for vaccination because Napa County Public Health is not the only game in town. So we have our drive-through and mobile clinics, but there are healthcare systems and outpatient practices that are offering it. For example, Kaiser has been offering vaccination for priority populations, although they don't have enough doses to get all of their members that are in the priority groups. And I had already mentioned OLA Health, and there are a couple of private practices that had the ability to 75 plus. The other thing is that Oakland Coliseum, which is a FEMA site, is available for vaccinations, and you have to fill out the My Turn form and then select that you're willing to get vaccinated in Oakland, and you should be able to get an appointment in the Coliseum if you qualify. And then there are the retail pharmacies. There is a pharmacy, a Rite Aid pharmacy in Napa that does offer COVID-19 vaccinations. CVS, they're building that out. Last that I checked, I don't think CVS had offered vaccinations in Napa County yet, but I know that that is ever evolving, and it's possible that that might come soon. And then what I found out today is that Walgreens is now added to the mix. So we'll just, I think it's just, we will get that information when it gets to Napa County and make sure that this is updated on our website. Next slide. So I want to talk about transition to the statewide system. So the state is trying to form a statewide vaccination network. So at this point, we had a county vaccine interest form, but now all counties are required to use the statewide My Turn system. And therefore, we are encouraging Napa County residents to register on My Turn and to put your information on there. So when it's your turn to get vaccinated, you're able to get notified of available appointments. And it not necessarily going to be in Napa County, it could be in neighboring counties. So the whole idea is that anyone in a rural county should be able to get to a vaccine site in 60 minutes, and anyone in an urban county can get to a vaccine site in 30 minutes. We will be transitioning our clinic scheduling into the My Turn system in mid-March. However, we may run it concurrently with our current scheduling system because we will be having second doses. So it's better to finish second doses using the current system that we're using now. And then Blue Shield will act as a third-party administrator and will work with local health jurisdictions to determine which healthcare entities will be part of the statewide vaccination network. So there is an expectation that any healthcare systems that are part of the vaccination network vaccinate outside of their patients or their members. So this means vaccinating Napa County residents or people that work in Napa County. And in fact, there is a movement to have counties eventually vaccinate people from other counties with a no wrong door approach. So, at that point, once we transition into the statewide system, we will no longer be able to allocate vaccines or pharmacies. This decision will be made by California Department of Public Health and implemented by Blue Shield. And then Napa County will be in the last wave of onboarding to the statewide network, which is targeted for March 14th. Next slide. So at this point, we're headed to the red tier. It's best to double down on our protective actions of practicing the 3 Ws, wash your hands, wear a mask, watch your distance, and to minimize mixing so that we can open more sectors of the economy. That's the end of my report.
Thank you for that report, Dr. Relucio, and I hope maybe you would have a few moments for a couple of questions that we had received from some of our residents. The first question I think you kind of answered already, but it was related to whether American Canyon residents have to depend on Napa County Health to get the vaccine. And I think you said Napa County Health's not the only game in town, but is the My Turn website the best way for people to get registered for that?
Yes, at this point, we really strongly encourage people to sign up on My Turn. And there's certainly a possibility that once you're eligible for vaccination, then you may receive an invitation to make an appointment at a clinic. And we're not going to be on board until mid-March, but there may be other opportunities in other counties or in the Oakland Coliseum until we transition into that system.
Great, thank you. The next question we have has to do with prioritization, and this particular question is asking, is there a way to get priorities for those who are under 65 but happen to live in the same house with someone who's 75 or older?
Yeah, so at this point, we're following the phases and tiers, and there's just not enough vaccine to vaccinate out of the phases and tiers that are put forward by the state. We wish we could do that, but I think until there's enough vaccine, we do have to prioritize, people that are 65 years of age or older, or those that fit in the phase 1A or 1B sectors.
Okay, thank you. The last question that we had, are there plans to have a vaccine location set up in American Canyon?
Yes, absolutely. So we are working at this point with, American Canyon Fire and other to find a suitable location to do a mass drive-through effort. In addition, we are really trying to use our mobile option to get to senior housing, for example, and these would be people that would have a hard time getting to a vaccine site. So it is underway.
Well, that's really great. I really appreciate the information, and we really are grateful for you able to spend your time with us this evening. I know you need to cut out and get to other matters, but thank you and take care and have a good evening.
Thank you for having me.
With that, we're actually going to move on to the next part of our presentation, and I'm going to be presenting an update from the city's perspective. And the next couple of slides, we're going to be showing our annual report to you. It's available soon on our website, the digital version. And we're going to go through a snapshot of the city and our accomplishments last year in the face of all of the obstacles that the pandemic presented us. And as we reflected back on our successes last year, I was really blown away by the amount of things we were able to accomplish. And it's in part because of the community and our resiliency and willing to take care of each other and help each other, and also the commitment from staff working through all the challenges and all the new different protocols and being able to adapt, and also the leadership from our city council and moving the city forward and not closing down, but just reopening ourselves in a different way. So with that, if we can have the next slide, we'll kind of jump into what this report talks about. And if we go back into our memory from a year ago, back in January, COVID wasn't on anybody's radar, and we had just moved our Park and Recreation Administration downstairs in City Hall, and some of the pictures you see in the book are from a River to Ridge Volunteer Day. Then in February, we began this process last year, our State of the City, with a city council meeting and an open house on our comprehensive general plan update. And probably our largest State of the City to date was a year ago, and it's somewhat ironic that we're now doing this all virtually here with nobody. But we had a great open house where our team presented our comprehensive general plan update. We've had a couple of meetings since then. COVID really kind of closed the door on some of that public participation, but we're going to be reinvigorating that effort later this spring. And by March, it became clear this pandemic was a real problem, and you began to see the emergencies and the closures and the current state of how things are. The city never closed down. What we did was adapt ourselves into a virtual way. All of our processes that you might come to City Hall for now are all available at our virtual City Hall, and it was a dedicated team of staff who implemented that change on a moment's notice, and it really helped us persevere. So if you take a look at our website now, you can find almost anything you would need on our virtual City Hall website. We also began to have city council meetings by Zoom and planning commission and other commission meetings by Zoom, and we continue to do that at least until it's safe to meet in person. By April, the stay-at-home orders had affected all of California, and we began to see many of our residents suffering through job loss and other circumstances in our community banded together. And you can see from some of the pictures and some of the food distributions we were able to, the generous members of our community and countywide with the donations, the monetary donations and food donations were distributed by staff and volunteers. And those efforts continue now in a more consolidated way. But at the time, it was really an organic effort made through so many of our contributors. Next slide, please. Next slide, Jen, please. Oh, there we go. Thank you. By May, we were still in the midst of the stay-at-home order, and the city council wanted to make sure we were still a leader in our energy conservation and sustainability efforts. And so we began a new project here to reduce our greenhouse gases involving new solar panels at various city facilities, energy efficient features, lighting and HVAC. And over time, our reduced electrical bill will pay for the cost of this new project. And we were able to take advantage of some really good interest rates because of how difficult the financial markets were. They were offering really low interest rates. So we took advantage of that interest rate environment to really save some money and create a better future for American Canyon. By June, we were into our budget process for the upcoming year, and the picture looked somewhat bleak. We were able to withstand the financial impacts in the prior fiscal year with some savings that we had in the bank, but the upcoming year we knew was going to be unstable. Unfortunately, our staff and our contractors and our vendors all came together to reduce costs. We implemented some unpaid furlough days, 20 unpaid furlough days to be exact, and we've been able to do that with reductions in service levels that we think the community has been able to appreciate, despite the fact that these are unpaid days. It was really the effort of staff and our consultants and our contractors coming together, recognizing the need to reduce expenses that helped us balance the budget for fiscal year 2021. On the brighter side, we celebrated a 10th anniversary of the Wetlands Edge Trail, and the American Canyon Community Parks Foundation held a virtual celebration and encouraged folks to go out if they hadn't been out there in a while to take photos and stories and share information. And our Wetlands Trail continues to be the most popular place in American Canyon. By July, we were all sort of getting used to the new normal, and we were trying to figure out how to conduct ourselves and go back to some of the offerings we had previously. The leadership at our aquatics center came up with a program to train lifeguards and to be able to get back into the pool. That model for training lifeguards became a national model because it's really hard to social distance lifeguard training, but they came up with a really unique model to create that certification program, and that led to us being able to reopen our pool, which was one of the very few pools open in all of Northern California in July. And it's a testament to their efforts and their vision. And later on in the year, we were awarded, we were mentioned in the Aquatics magazine for our notable efforts. In August, again, COVID started to ramp back up, and again, our communities really started to have to endure some additional complications, in particular blackouts and the start of the first major fire of the year in mid-August. And city staff and fire district personnel responded to those events, and it just added another layer of complexity to the situation. Next slide, please. September was another notable month for disasters. The Glass Fire was a second major fire that had happened in less than a month and really impacting countywide. City staff and fire department personnel responded to that. And we were still in the midst of a pandemic with increasing case counts. All of this led to really complicated times, but we were able to, through additional protocols, at least offer some additional amenities for the community. AYSO began offering soccer, and other groups were working with our Park and Recreation Department to offer programming, both distant programming and virtual programming. Last year was also the year of the census, which kind of got lost in all of the other things that were going on. But by October, it became clear how important the census was and how on track we were to get all those responses in. All told, American Canyon had an 80% response rate, which was well above our goal, and was very critical for counting all of the residents of American Canyon. We also began to see some initial construction of a really amazing project. The Canyon Estates project will begin building homes above the high school and above Newell Drive next year, but some of the early infrastructure began in October. November, one of the more landmark accomplishments for the year was the American Canyon Community Parks Foundation's donation of a very large outdoor equipment playground, really for fitness goers, and this was also made in partnership with the donors to the foundation, and also the Stravinsky Group, who donated a lot of the concrete slab and the infrastructure that led to this project. Really an accomplishment where all the parties pitched in to put this together. City staff assembled the equipment and installed it, and even the manufacturer was able to cut some of their pricing. So this remains a very popular amenity that's still in use today. And then in December, we began work on our latest paving project. This is on James Road, and that project continues today. Sadly, by the end of December, the county had about 100 or so deaths from COVID-19, and the county was in its most restrictive stay-at-home order. And so we were all grappling with the surge that Dr. Verlucio talked about in December. Next slide, please. So what is 2021 going to bring us? We heard on the pandemic front from Dr. Verlucio what 2021 looks like, and it's a light at the end of the tunnel. That the surge that occurred in January has tapered down this past month, and there's a lot of optimism around vaccine distribution that continues to brighten, each day. And we go back to the future of our community, which is largely centered around the two specific plans that were approved prior to the pandemic, the Watson Ranch specific plan around the Napa Valley Ruins and Gardens, and the Broadway District specific plan. Those are still in place, and we still see a lot of progress being made despite the pandemic in both of those areas. Next slide, please. What you can expect in 2021 is major investment. On the city side, we have more than $20 million worth of capital projects that are either underway or will be underway this year. I mentioned previously the James Road project, which is a new roadway, a rehabilitated roadway, and new utilities underneath the roadway. The Devlin Road project will be a brand new roadway that gets built on the northwest side of town. This will connect the existing end of Devlin Road to Green Island Road and creates a path all the way up to Napa Airport that doesn't involve the highway, and will connect a lot of the businesses in that area to their other facilities and provide an alternative route for the highway. It's a project that's a long time coming, and there were several segments of this road built. This last segment will be in construction this year. Green Island Road, right adjacent to Devlin Road, will also see some major investment. You'll see utility undergrounding and other major construction happening on that project this year. And there will be more than $100 million worth of private capital expected to be invested. A couple of really amazing projects. A new medical office building is planned in the Napa Junction Center next to the Tractor Supply. The Home to Suites Hotel and the former Strawberry Patch is expected to break ground this summer. Amazon Distribution Center is already in construction and expect to be completed later this year. And the Canyon Estates project that I mentioned as well. We'll continue to start to see infrastructure and homes being built there. And of course, the Watson Ranch project will be seeing a flurry of activity. We expect new homes and roads and infrastructure to be built with that project, all of which will be breaking ground, we expect later this spring as well. With that, other items on the horizon that members of the public can expect to see. We will be continuing with our comprehensive general plan update. Those involve some steering committees, and we'll be tackling that again. We also we have pending applications for new housing to go up on Oat Hill. And those applications are being currently reviewed now by staff. There's also another warehouse on Commerce Boulevard. This would be the second of 3 planned warehouses that is under consideration and review by staff at the moment. The West Side Connector is an important new roadway that's planned in the city, and an important task is picking the alignment of that road and considering all the factors that make sense for that alignment. And so that's an important decision that will need to happen this year. And the Hampton Inn Hotel is a project that's under consideration by the city as well. This would be a project on Highway 29, a new hotel project. And lastly, there's a couple of gas stations that are pending review right now as well. And we know some of these projects are of great interest to the community, and we encourage everyone to be following along, to be following the Planning Commission and the City Council's review of these items, and to solicit, we want to solicit your feedback and input on these projects. And with that, we'll move on to the next slide. And I'm going to turn over now to our new Fire District Chief, Mike Cahill. Introduce Mike and let him take the floor. So, Chief Cahill, welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. And there we go. So thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening and bring you up to the community up to date a little bit on what's going on with the Fire Protection District. We have the Fire District is is not actually a department within the city structure. It is a special district that a subsidiary district to the city, and we are, although we do provide services within the city limits, we also provide fire protection services outside the city limits, essentially in the area from south of the airport to the Vallejo city limits and out to Highway 80. The fire department provides fire suppression, fire prevention, rescue, and emergency services. And we also are a primary provider of advanced life support, paramedic services in the south part of the county. We do that in conjunction with the county's EMS system, with AMR being the transport provider for EMS in the entire county. We also participate in regional response teams. Napa Interagency Hazardous Materials Team. We work with the other departments within the county, with the county fire, with the city of Napa, and other agencies. We also are involved in a interagency rescue team, which is a team that, again, because of the size of the county and the need to have trained personnel, all the fire departments in the county participate in this process and train their personnel and respond together, much like we do during the fire season to the wildland fires in the area. We're also American Canyon's been recognized for a number of years as a California Office of Emergency Services heavy rescue type 1 team. We do urban search and rescue, and it's a kind of a feather in our cap. We have a training facility here in American Canyon, and we have specialized equipment and personnel trained to that higher level. And we are capable of responding throughout California with the Cal OES system. Another super important piece of our department, and I'm really proud of what they do, is the American Canyon Community Response Team. This is a group of community members who are specially trained and very active in the community to provide support to the community and our department during times of disaster. But one of the most important things that they've been doing lately is because of what's been going on with the pandemic, is that they've been supporting the county's program in terms of the vaccination programs happening up at the expo. But they also have been a major support to the rest of the county during the fires this last fall, with radio services, with handing out water to the disaster victims, things like that. We have a need in the community for CERT members, and I would encourage everyone who's had all thought about becoming interested in participating more in the American Canyon community to help folks. ACERT is a major player and an excellent group to work with, and I would encourage folks to do that. So I think that's pretty much what I have. I'm going to pass the baton to Supervisor Ramos.
Thank you so much, Chief Cahill, and thank you to the City of American Canyon for the opportunity to share some county updates. Certainly, what we know is that COVID-19 took over most of 2020 for us. But one of the things that, while I will focus on what we did county specific related to COVID-19, I want to assure everyone that the county functions that you depend upon, that you know of year in and year out that we do, like managing roads and operating a jail, public safety, land use, and elections during a presidential year. All that continued during this pandemic of COVID-19. But the other things that really came to light in 2020 is what truly the county does do. And the county's primary function is to provide for the health and welfare of its residents. And so the tiniest of departments, public health, is the one that took the spotlight. And I'm so glad that Dr. Relucio was here to join us to talk about specific public health matters. But I want to talk a little bit more about that bigger picture of what happened. And really what happened is that COVID-19 had no respect for our jurisdictional boundaries. And so we took the approach of really approaching our community with education, with resources, with testing, and now vaccination in a collaborative manner. And I really want to thank and applaud the City of American Canyon and the Fire District, because every time that I picked up the phone and asked for assistance and outreach efforts specific to areas that were being affected that week by COVID-19, the city and the district were right there, whether it was standing at tables and educating people, knocking on doors, handing out masks in front of Safeway and asking people to put that extra turkey back and to keep their gatherings small. The city and the district were there for us every step of the way. And it really was a collaborative partnership from the top bookend of Calistoga to our bottom bookend here of American Canyon. Next slide, please. As was mentioned by the city manager, there were many food distributions that took place. And food distributions, I wanted to highlight, it was both human consumed food, but also pet consumed food. And so we had many partners to making sure that we provided for our community, because people that we otherwise would normally see in normal downturns of recessions, out of work or in need of assistance, this was a very, very different time. And we actually heard from an economist this morning at our board meeting, and it really showed us that the tremendous impact that we had on our families here really took place in April and May. And you saw those efforts of providing those community services, providing food and sustenance and rental assistance really come through during those months. And that was present everywhere, absolutely everywhere. Next slide, please. As if the year wasn't hard enough, August and September brought us devastating fires back to back with the LNU complex and the glass fire. And we just updated our acreage each time as we go and we look at inspecting the devastation during those fires. But to put it in context, nearly half of our county land burned in 2020. That's a tremendous burden. But again, we're incredibly grateful for the partnership that we have with our nonprofit agencies and with cities like American Canyon that were willing to stand up evacuation centers for us as necessary. COVID certainly did present a different challenge as to how we were going to relocate people, and we were able to do so safely. And we actually did not have any transmissions of COVID through evacuations or evacuees and our evacuation sites. Next slide, please. As you know, in the unincorporated areas and even in some parts of American Canyon, there's livestock, there are horses, and this presented a great challenge. We are incredibly grateful for the partnership that we have with Napa CART, the animal rescue team, and we're grateful that we have a presence with Napa CART in a collaboration with our CERT teams to work to make sure that we're able to move out livestock, which included 128 horses that were moved out of the Berryessa area through the Hennessy fire. Next slide, please. What this really brought, 2020 itself presented a tremendous challenge economically. And so when we looked at how we were going to pivot, which really 2020's word the year was to pivot with every change, with every challenge that came our way, and certainly revenue and expenses were great pivots of 2020. We really were conservative in our projections, and what we can actually say is that we fared better than we thought we would. Our sales tax actually ended up $5.1 million better than anticipated, than we had budgeted. Our transient occupancy tax was a little lower than budgeted, and a lot of that also probably has to do with that regional stay-at-home order that Dr. Relucio spoke about that really changed everything for us in the month of December. Our Proposition 172 public safety sales tax dollars, that came in a little bit better than anticipated. And our secured property tax came in just slightly better. At the same time, the county's COVID response, we are tracking that carefully. And at this point, we're at $23 million of expenses for that 2020 period, and they will continue to grow. Our Hennessy and Glass Fire expenses, when you think about the 498 miles of roads that the county maintains, and you think about those guardrails that burned during the fire, and you think about the signs, and you think about the melted asphalt, it is a tremendous amount of expenses that we are still tallying at this point. And remember, this is on top of our 2017 fire impacts that we still haven't repaired fully all the roads because we're still waiting on some of those dollars and to be able to have the opportunity to deliver on those projects. Notwithstanding the fact that we've had these better than anticipated revenues and these expenses that continue, we've also kept an eye on what the community needs. Next slide, please. As part of the CARES Act dollars that came our way from state and federal allocations to the county, one of the things that we did is we actually set aside $2 million. We set aside those $2 million knowing that the burden and the effects of COVID-19 came really sharply at our community in about April and May. And so again, we took that word of the year pivot and we made some adjustments into our community grants process. And by infiltrating an additional $2 million that was COVID specific, we were able to award these grants that were given to nonprofits in Napa County that could assist us with the objectives that we were trying to meet. So we did give $500,000 to the Napa Chamber of Commerce to provide grants for businesses, and those grants have come through by helping some restaurants with parklets and streamlining permitting processes. We gave childcare dollars to both the Boys and Girls Club and Community Resources for Children because, as you know, in the early on days, getting childcare was incredibly difficult, especially for those essential workers that were still required to show up for work. And so we knew that while this did not fully address the childcare needs, it certainly helped to provide that assistance because the childcare providers also were seeing increased costs with just even the purchasing of PPE to be able to deliver those childcare services. We provided money to the Napa Community Foundation for rental assistance. That rental assistance, coupled with the tenants' rights, has certainly, and other state grant programs, has certainly helped to stabilize our community. The last thing we wanted to do is to have a transitory community moving and exposing our residents to COVID-19. And so this was a great chunk of change that helped to achieve that goal. We additionally provided rental assistance dollars and financial support specifically to victims of domestic violence to news, because sadly, one of the things we did see during this pandemic, continue to see, is a rise in domestic violence. The pressures that are placed on families are great, and so we wanted to make sure that we were specifically allocating dollars to those that were in the most vulnerable of rental assistance positions. We also provided rental assistance dollars to Puertas Abiertas, which is a family resource center that primarily served the Latinx population. in Napa, in City of Napa and South. And again, making sure we get those dollars to those trusted partners. We also provided a grant to Community Action Napa Valley for distribution of food. As you know, we have seen many people in need in our community for food. Just the basic need of food is something that we wanted to make sure was satisfied. And so by providing this influx of money, it really made sure that we restocked those shelves, and working with other nonprofits and organizations such as here in American Canyon, the Kiwanis Club, with the school district, and with USDA allocations, that food we know is getting to the people who need it most. We also provided a transportation grant to Molly's Angels. One of the things that was incredibly important for us is to make sure that seniors were still able to get to any appointments they needed to get to food, but certainly to testing and now to vaccinations. We don't want transportation to be the reason why people are not able to live a healthy life, even during this pandemic, for our seniors. So we gave that transportation grant. One of the things we're going to continuously work on as we started the first step towards our budget process this morning is we'll continue to track the economic impacts of COVID-19 and the wildfires. It's a little more optimistic. It's not rosy, but it's a little more optimistic than we had hoped. And we certainly hope to continue to work with all of our partners to deliver these essential services, and hopefully as we have seen, that we all in these difficult times are able to work collaboratively together to provide for those most basic needs. And I'm proud to be able to serve you as your supervisor and to deliver upon those services here in American Canyon. That concludes my portion of the presentation. I would like to then turn it over to the President and CEO of the American Canyon Chamber of Commerce, Valerie Cisak-Moraes.
Thank you very much, Belia. I appreciate that opening statement. I am your President CEO, Valerie Cisak-Moraes, here at the Chamber. As you see, my background looks different. I was unable to get this screen today. So I am currently sitting here at my chamber, and I am proudly displaying my background of photos of, over the years, all of the great things the Chamber has done. I was I was chosen as President CEO at the start of the COVID pandemic, which was a very challenging time for me to take over. But with the support of our community and these amazing board members, I have been able to be very successful in my position. A lot of people are not aware that the American Canyon Chamber of Commerce is a nonprofit organization. We survive solely off of membership. So when you ask businesses for membership during a pandemic, you really shouldn't be doing that. So we had to find multiple other ways to keep our doors open and to gain revenue while we're still serving our American Canyon business community. The American Canyon business community, unlike Valley, has been operating between 80 to 85% during COVID-19. We have a large portion of our businesses that are considered essential. And with that, we've been able to remain open. Yes, our small businesses have been hit harder than we wanted to face. And, clearly that is where our focus point is right now, and making sure that we can help these businesses thrive, survive, and come back to life. The American Canyon Chamber has worked with a lot of the nonprofit organizations in town. We've worked closely with the City of American Canyon, the County of Napa, and we've also started a Napa Valley Chamber Coalition during the pandemic. We've realized that we are the source of communication for our businesses, and because of that, we need to make as many connections as possible to make sure we're getting the information to the businesses that's correct and prompt. It's been very, very challenging with the opening and the closing, and not being sure where they stand or how they're going to, be next week, or 1 week they're operating and the next week they're shut down. So it's been very, very, very stressful and challenging. And to have somebody that's actually taken on this role, which was myself, to be in communication with our businesses, to make sure that all of their needs are met, to make sure that we're being sympathetic with the fact that they're going through a really hard time right now. And we need to put all the resources into place that we possibly can in order to help these businesses. I'm pretty proud of a couple programs that the Chamber has launched. We started with our Back to the Table events. We were planning on launching in July, which it took us a few months to get it rolling due to COVID restrictions changing and us wanting to make sure that we were getting the most out of the campaign as possible. But what this campaign is the American Canyon Chamber rotates through our small business restaurants, and we highlight each restaurant bi-weekly, and we encourage our residents to patronize these restaurants. It's very, very important that our residents come out and patronize our businesses during this time. A lot of our pass-through traffic, which is tourists, come here and patronize our restaurants. And during this time, we're not getting that foot traffic. So I've created this campaign in order to encourage in order to encourage the residents to come out and patronize these businesses. We put a little incentive in it where if you come out and patronize that business on the day, you get your name put into a drawing to win a $50 gift card to the business purchased by the Chamber, which we can guarantee at least $100 in funds of those gift cards that we purchased will go back into the business. It's a way to just make sure there's a little extra revenue. So we're extremely happy with this, and we're actually started our first Back to the Table food truck edition last week, and we have our next one tomorrow here at the American Canyon Chamber. So come on out, patronize the food trucks, and get your family a nice little treat. We've also relaunched the Economic Business Development Group. I feel that this is very, very important. We're working closely with city council members, other businesses. I am also part of a Napa County Economic Business Development Group. We're focusing on diversity and recovery for our businesses. So this is really, really important. And I'm taking a lot of the information that I'm gathering from those meetings, bringing it back to American Canyon. Also, a big focus of ours is how can we attract new business? What type of new businesses do we want to see in American Canyon? And how do we bring what the residents want to see? So this is something we're working very closely with our surrounding cities here in Napa County and along with the American Canyon key players for this. So more to come on how we're going to get more businesses, but I think that this is a great direction for the Chamber. Also, I'm sure you all remember that we did the 2020 Candidates Forum. Before COVID, we started with our Supervisors Forum that we did at the Boys and Girls Club, which we had a fantastic turnout. And then during COVID, we had to find a pivot, as we all like to say, and launch a virtual candidates forum, which it was very successful. And we were thankful to be able to do both the mayor's race and the city council race and get that information out to our community. Another really important event that we launched was our business social distancing. And I'm sure a lot of you know the Chamber as being a host of the Mixers. This was a virtual form of our Mixer that we've recently changed to Business Social. And what we did was we invited all of the members and all of the key players in American Canyon to come out, and we did nothing but socialize. We talked about what's going on in every industry. How can we help? How can we link together the people that need the resources? And this has really been a key component to the pandemic because we are all in touch with each other in ways that maybe we would not be able to be. So I'm really proud of the business social distancing and keeping our community connected during this really challenging time. Another really important campaign that we launched is what we're calling Bridge the Gap. This is a campaign I hope to see around long term. This is connecting business with community. And by doing that, we are helping our nonprofits in town along with our schools. Our first Bridge the Gap campaign, we raised funds for the American Canyon High School Visual and Performing Arts Department. We were able to take them a check of almost $7,000. And we currently, yesterday, launched our second Bridge the Gap campaign, which is for the American Canyon Middle School in place of casino night. So our goal is to raise $20,000 for the American Canyon Middle School, but we need the community to help support. And by supporting, I mean just buying a $10 ticket, and hopefully you'll win one of our amazing prizes. So, keep your eyes out for all of the details on this. This is something that we really need community support on. But like I said, the money is going back to the American Canyon Middle School, and this is a great opportunity to help those programs right now. A few things that we did that we're pretty proud of, here in American Canyon, we have a large industrial area that a lot of people don't know that is there. It's called the Green Island Road District, and it's off of Green Island Road. We have manufacturing, distribution, wine warehouses, food manufacturers, chocolate manufacturing, Mazetta, all their little goodies. And these businesses, some of them, most of them, became busier than they ever have been, which means they brought in more revenue than what they anticipated. And because of that, they were very, very generous with the donations here in American Canyon. We convened over $40,000, and that's between product and monetary donations to our local food pantry. The Kiwanis Club runs the American Canyon Emergency Food Pantry, and we were able to keep that stocked for them, helping them buy the businesses. We're very, very thankful for our Member of the Year, Mazetta. Not only were they a huge sponsor for giving food donations to the pantry, they provided lunches for our COVID-19 testing sites. And that money was about $4,000 in COVID testing lunches. And it went back into our local restaurants to produce food for our volunteers. So it was a win-win. I love it when we do one task, but we also accomplish other tasks along with it. So we're very proud of that. We also provided wear your mask signs for all of American Canyon businesses. Right now, extra cost for the businesses is not something they have, but we wanted to ensure that everybody was aware that American Canyon does have a rule to wear your masks when you go into the businesses. So we provided nice signage with the help of the City of American Canyon, and Fast Signs is our sponsor, and everybody got a sign. So I'm sure you've seen those all around town. We've also we did a large PPE drive where we gave out PPE supplies to all of the residents and the businesses that were in need. It was a huge hit. We had over 1,000 cars come through this event, and it was a great opportunity right before the spikes to get as much PPE in the hands of our businesses as possible. As Belia was touching, the County of Napa has done a lot for us, and I feel very thankful that the County of Napa has worked closely with the American Canyon Chamber of Commerce in order to make sure that all of our needs are being met. I believe that we are building our relationship stronger and stronger up Valley as every day goes on, and this pandemic has really brought us all together and shown us that we are stronger as a team. So I'm very thankful for the relationships that we've been able to build during COVID, and I am hoping that we can continue to keep this relationship open and only grow American Canyon even bigger with the help of our county. So with all that said, that's pretty much a wrap up of what we've done this year. One thing I want to ask of our community is, I focus on the businesses, and most of my social media is drawn towards our businesses, and all of my emails that go out are towards our businesses. But I'm really looking to increase that following of American Canyon residents. So if you could just take the time to go to our Facebook page and like that, go to our Instagram page, like that, check out our website whenever you have free time. If you are looking for something to do, we are accepting volunteers. We have in-house work. We do COVID-friendly events helping out within our community that we need volunteers for. And once we reopen, we're also a welcome center. So we're going to need volunteers to come into our welcome center and hand out tourist information. So if any of you are looking for something to do, if you need a little bit of a side volunteer position, the American Canyon Chamber of Commerce is the place to come. We've got lots of fun stuff planned, and we're just trying to keep this community alive. So any support we can have would be greatly appreciated. And with that said, I am going to wrap up my presentation and pass the floor back to Jason Hawley.
Thank you, Valerie. And if you wouldn't mind staying there, I'm going to invite the rest of our panelists to come back up on the screen. We solicited questions ahead of time and have a number of questions. We're not going to be able to get to all of them, but I'll start with just a couple of questions. One maybe for you, Valerie. The question came from a resident. What can residents do to present ideas for new businesses or fundraise to start new businesses in our area?
This is a great question, Jason. Thank you so much for that. You know, as I mentioned, we're working on our economic development portion of American Canyon and building that and growing that. Part of that is a business recruitment process. It's going to take some time in order to survey our residents to see what types of business they would like to come into town, and then reaching out to businesses to see who we're a good fit for. But if any resident has a question or has an idea about what businesses should come to town, I highly encourage you to reach out to the chamber. I'm looking for suggestions. I'm looking for ideas. And all of this information will be taken back to the key players that can help get this started.
Great, thank you for that. The next question we had was for you, Chief Cahill, and this resident noted that the fire district recently purchased some land near Walmart. What's the plan for that? What we're going to do with that land?
Sure, thank you, Jason. Yeah, that property was purchased. Actually, the process was started before I came to American Canyon, but I like to say that it was it's an important step to the future. The property availability in American Canyon is becoming less and less, certainly for things like fire stations. And in this case here, we need to move our footprint a little bit further north so we can provide better response into the area, both in the Watson Ranch, but also up into the industrial portions of on the west side of town. And so this purchase of this property is a step in that direction. Cost of the property is continuing to go up. I thought it was a very good move on the part of the fire district board to purchase the property and set us up. It's a great business move. We look forward to developing that property in the future.
Great, thank you. The last question we have here is for you, Supervisor Ramos, and the resident was asking about American Canyon Road, particularly up near towards Highway 80, and if there are any plans for repairing some of the asphalt conditions up that way.
Certainly. As a cyclist that actually takes that road up over into Hidden Brook, I can certainly appreciate the concerns about that road. And when I actually rode just about a couple months ago, I rode my bike up there and I noticed the exact subsidence that is happening. I reached out to Public Works, and one of the things, as you can imagine, we've had deferred maintenance on our roads for years. It took us 25 years to get into this position that we're at in county roads, and it's going to take us a while to get out. The way we decide which roads that we are going to rehabilitate first is by a pavement index that is done in our Bay Area region. A regional transportation agency gives us a grade, and this index is what helps us prioritize which projects need to get done first. I can say that American Canyon Road is not up next, but it will be on the list of fiscal year 23-24 for full rehabilitation. Knowing the cracks and the potholes that we have that certainly happen during the winter time, we anticipate being able to get to a patch job of American Canyon Road in late March or early April, certainly depending upon weather. We do know there are also concerns at the top of American Canyon Road. I've had them myself. There's been a lot of dumping that has happened at the top end of American Canyon Road. That top end of American Canyon Road is Solano County jurisdiction, and I actually did reach out to a Solano County supervisor of that area to discuss the top end. If you see certain conditions that are posing an immediate safety concern, certainly you're welcome to reach out to our Public Works Department or to my office so that we can address them. But I also want to add a different element to this, Jason, if I could, and that is, one of the ways, as you know, the resources are limited for our agencies to be able to address all of the needs. And so one of the ways in which we can really help to keep the appearance and the safety of American Canyon Road is through our Adopt a Road program. And if you have a community group or as families you want to get together and you want to adopt American Canyon Road, it is available for adoption through our County Public Works Department. And if you want further information, you're welcome to contact my office.
That's great. Thank you. And in fairness, that wasn't the only question about roads. We received a question about some city streets, particularly over in Rancho. And we'll be announcing shortly the hiring of a new public works director here in American Canyon, and among their first tasks will be revisiting our own Measure T expenditure plan and the prioritization of various streets. We do have our challenges getting the utilities beneath those streets fixed first, but among their new responsibilities will be to work on that plan. It's an effort we started earlier last year, and we'll get restarted again. And maybe one last question, being your role on the NVTA board, Supervisor Ramos, if you wouldn't mind talking about the Saskell Junction project and what we might see for that project as traffic goes in and out of the Napa Valley this year.
Certainly. One of the things that we have done is in the South County, and when I say South County, I'm looking Highway 12 towards Sonoma southernly, is really look at what are those bottlenecks. And there are some intersection improvements that small intersection improvements that can yield a high benefit. But one of the things that we have known for a while now is that Saskell Junction itself at Highway 29 is a bottleneck. And if you have work early in the morning or taking kids to school in that direction, you most definitely know the bottleneck. And certainly the city manager and I talk about the failures of roads as he goes one direction and I go the other direction in the morning. What I can say is that the Saskell Junction project is 95% through with design. That design work actually will be completed in March of 2021. You can visit NVTA and see a simulated video of how the redesign will work. And really it's going to be a continuous flow on the top end and 2 roundabouts lower. So there will be some division of grade, different mobility from the Trancas intersection, Trancas Redwood and 29, but that same idea of really having 2 different grades and being able to move through. In addition to those 2 roundabouts, one of the things that we just approved at the county last month was to design an additional roundabout into the Devlin connection that comes from Saskell Ferry, because one of the things that we know is that left turn pocket is not big enough to be able to withstand all the movement that's going to be coming. So we have added that, because if we're going to be doing this work, we might as well do it all efficiently at the same time. So using some of our airport industrial area transit dollars in that area, we're going to try and deliver upon a more complete project itself. The Saskell Junction construction project is a $25 million project. And we do have the funding for this project. So we just need to get through design and get ready to go. This has been a partnership with the city of Napa, with the county, and with NVTA. And it certainly is going to yield some great relief for us overall. What I can say is, these projects, they do take a bit, but once we get to them and we get to that design phase, you're going to really start seeing some improvements. Bear with us through the construction. As all construction, as you know, if you're passing by James Road in town, construction can be a bear to deal with, but the promise of these 3 roundabouts and this integrated intersection is certainly going to be positive for the South County.
That's really great. Well, thank you for that update. And with that, I think we're going to take all the other questions that have been submitted, and we'll be preparing a response and an update to those questions, and we'll be sharing them on the city website along with this video and our State of the City report to the community. So we're going to wrap this up this evening and just say thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Ramos. Thank you, Chief Cahill. And thank you, Valerie from the Chamber of Commerce, along with Dr. Relucio. Thank you for being here and sharing the information with the community. Hopefully next year we can do this in person and not on the computer. But I think given the circumstances, it's best we could do. And I appreciate all of your support. Take care and stay safe. And thank you very much. Have a good night.